Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are in Jeremiah chapter 18. Now, this chapter talks about God tells Jeremiah to go to the potter's house. And no, this is not T.D. Jakes' church. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. Those of you that don't know, the T.D. Jakes Church is named the Potter's House. Okay, and I think he did a sermon on it about the potter. Uh, Maybe I think a famous sermon on the potter's hand or something. Anyway, it's not talking about T.D. Jakes. But he says, watch this jar. I mean, the potter works with this. Back then, and they had a certain way of taking mud and spinning it and making a jar. Okay, I think you still can do that today as a you know pastime. Um, but what happened was you see this picture here. The image that God gave showed him was as the potter was making it, it messed up, and he takes the lump and discards it, and he's going to make another one. And then he says, this prophecy, house of Israel, can I not do what I will with my clay? And that becomes, uh, I think, a thought that can answer some questions. It may not be satisfactory, but when we start off with God is sovereign, so you start with that thought that God is sovereign. God made all of us. God made all of this. So he's sovereign, and he could do what he wills with his creation. So any other questions, and when people say, well, God is not fair. Well, how come God allows evil? Now, I think a mistake that some of us make is try to explain and justify God. You're not qualified to do that. God hasn't appointed any of us to try to explain him or justify him. So when people read the Bible and they say, well, that God is flawed. And of course, from an atheist perspective, they're going to say, your God, the thought of your God is flawed. And I've seen the ex-Christian movement. I've seen the deconstruction movement, which is some ex-Christians who are deconstructing from Christianity. They become whatever they become, mostly atheists, it seems like. So then they pick at Christianity. Their object is to, let's pick at Christianity and try to dismantle the concept. Well, God, here's the thing. You can't get away from God. But here's the problem. And I say that because this is the way God made us, which is why they spend a whole lot of time trying to dismantle the thought of God. To me, you're kind of wrestling with your own thoughts. My opinion, of course. But this, let me bring it up. So a couple of things I want to explore with this. Verse 5, let me read verse 1 again and go through 5. It says, this is the word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah from the Lord. Go down at once to the potter's house. Go down at once to the potter's house, and there I will reveal my words to you. So I went down to the potter's house, and there he was working away at the wheel. But the jar that he was making from the clay became flawed in the potter's hand. So he made it into another jar as it seemed right for him to do. Then the word of the Lord came to me, house of Israel, can I not treat you as this potter treats his clay? This is the declaration of the Lord. He said, just like the clay in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, house of Israel. And right here, God is simply declaring his sovereignty. He could do what he will with us, however he chooses. My point is, this is where we start the thought. Now, those who try to make the accusations against God make it from a perspective you don't, that, okay, you could make all the accusations you want, but keep this in mind, you make it because God allowed it. That's all. And as I said before, what we all have in common, those of us who are alive, what we all have in common is we are suspended between birth and death. And in doing this suspension here, we have freedom, we have will. We could choose to serve God, we could choose not to serve God, we could choose to live right, we can choose not to live right. I could choose to be a good citizen, and I could choose not to be a good citizen. Now, of course, if I choose not to be a good citizen and I get caught, guess what? I'm going to go to jail. My rights are going to be suspended. And of course, in all of this are the evils of the world, are the evils that we have to go into. That's a whole other discussion, right? But here's my point. God allows me to curse him. God allows me to bless him. God allows me to resist him. God allows me to submit to him. Okay, so when we sit up and we say, well, how come God doesn't just do whatever? Well, first of all, God is not beholden to us. So, there are literally billions of questions we could ask God, right? Because there are billions of people. Well, why did my loved one? Well, why did God allow my loved one to suffer and die, right? And just plug in however that happens, because all death is horrible, right? I mean, all death is horrible. And you have people that die horrible ways. You have people who don't die horrible ways. You have people who are saved from horrible situations. There's some people who can survive an airplane crash while others die, right? I've never experienced that. However it comes out, however it comes out, how small or how great, my life has been relatively blessed. I can say my life has relatively been blessed, right? I mean, when I say, I'm not saying relatively. I mean, when I compare it to people who suffer a tremendous lot more, that's why I say mine. The days, as Jacob said, my days of sorrow have been few and far between. I've had some sorrow, I've had some suffering, and in a lot of respect, because of that, I could say, oh my God, this happened to me. A couple of years ago, I was in a bike accident. Um, you, I wonder if you look kind of closely at what side is it? I think it's this side here. You could, if you look closely, I still bear some of the marks. I mean, uh, still to this day, 8 hours of my life I cannot account for it. I do not remember. And I sometimes I wonder. I was riding my bike, and I can't say I was remembering. Uh, I can only say this probably happened because of the routine that I used to ride my bike down the bike path that I was riding. And from there, I do not know what happened. I don't remember the moment of impact. I remember coming to consciousness 8 hours later, waking up in my bedroom. It was dark, and I'm like, why am I here? My kids, my grandkids were coming in checking on me, and and I'm like, what are y'all doing around? Why are they doing this? But then all of a sudden, oh, I'm feeling pain, right? I was banged up, but I oftentimes think, why did God let that happen to me? I mean, God could have said, look out, right? Here's the point. I don't know. And it doesn't matter. God is still sovereign. What I do thank God for is because I've known several other bike riders who have died because of bike accidents. So I didn't have any broken limbs. I'm thankful for that. Like I say, I was banged up, and 8 hours still not. I can't account for that. I can't remember not one single ounce of what happened. Not the moment of impact. So I can't tell you I ran into something. I think I obviously looking at my bike ran into something. I can't tell you. I also thank God that as I was told, someone saw me. Someone was happened to be there, and what's kind of interesting that somebody was there. They called 911. That particular stretch where they picked me up, it could have been hours before I was found. Um, so my point is, I could fret. See, why did that happen to me? Because it's frustrating, right? When I think about it, I think I was out of commission about a month and a half, something like that. I was out of commission. I was banged up. Why, God? Why? No, it didn't matter why. It doesn't matter why I don't have enough information to go, well, God, why didn't you just, stop it? For that matter, who says he didn't try to stop it, right? Who says he did not, right? So there's a lot of things, like same thing, about, but I also I walked away with no broken limbs. I walked away with not being paralyzed. Walked away being alive, okay? But, so my point is, uh, there are people that suffer a lot of things. You say, well, why did God do that? Well, we don't have enough information. Does it change the fact that God is sovereign? Okay. Does it change the fact that you can wag your finger in God's face and say, you allowed this? Well, we do that because of our ignorance and foolishness, because God is not here, meaning God's not present. The lesson to me that I learned from reading the book of Job, we could boast a lot of things when we're not in the presence of God. But when we're in the presence of God, that changes. That changes. Another interesting thing about this is, to me, what a lot of things I want to add to this. One of the things that's interesting is how sovereign God is, how in control God is. That we kind of think that God created, the earth and then kind of kickballed it down, that, okay, here we go down this way, and then he's kind of out there not doing anything. So we think God is kind of, there is a theological term for this, and I'm having a brain freeze. It begins with a D, so forgive me, you know, uh, I forgot it begins with a D, but anyway, this idea that God created everything and then took a long trip. No, what we find is that God is extremely, extremely active. We're going to really see that when we get over into the book of Daniel. That God is sovereign in the affairs of life. That God is ruling things. Now, people may say, well, then my life can be a lot better. Maybe. But if it's not, okay, God is still sovereign. When we look at government, again, a whole lot of other stuff that's going on. God is sovereign here. So, I don't fret over my life. Like now, I'm certainly rounding third base. I'm in my 60s, and when you get this kind of age, at least for me, my mortality is ever before me, right? That, the end of my life is not, if I go back 20 years, I never thought about the end of my life. Now, oh, it's here. But um, let me show you something else here quickly. I'm going to go to John chapter 1. The book of John chapter 1. All right. So look at this. He says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. All things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. This declaration of really the revelation of Jesus, he was the Word. You go all the way back into eternity past. Travel back as far as you can, and what you will find, what you would run into, is God, right? Past time, past the creation of time, past the creation of the universe, past the creation of everything that is created, you run into God. It starts with God. God is the beginning. God self-exists, right? He's the beginning, and everything comes from him. So when he says right here, all things were created through him, and apart from him, not one thing was created that has been created. I know I said, let me go one more verse of scripture. Let's go to Colossians chapter 1. Colossians chapter 1. Colossians chapter 1. I'm going to pick it up at verse 15. It says, he is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation, for everything was created by him in heaven and in earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions, or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. Now that statement there, for him. So whatever it is, God creates everything for him. He is the beginning. He is the creator. Everything is created for him. So my point is, this is our starting point. Like, as y'all can see, my little cubby space here while I make these videos, it's my space. It's how I want it to be. Now, sometimes my wife kind of chuckles me like it's, she's like, ooh, it's bland, plain. Okay, well, this is my space, right? Like I say, you see this shelf right here. If I want to take this shelf down, I can, because these are my shelf. They're my things. Everything I own here, I didn't create it, but it is mine. And so I'm sovereign right here in this space. I'm sovereign, right? Now I can do whatever I want with it. So this, what you see up here, books and stuff, cannot say, well, I want to be on the other shelf right here. Okay, no. And bad analogy. But when we get back to God, as far as to creation, how God created everything. So now you start with that. So however things go, God is in control. Do I believe that there's going to be a world war that's going to take out everybody? Absolutely not. Do I think climate controls are going to take everything out? Absolutely not. I already have the revelation from God how things are going to go. Okay, I already have the revelation. Okay, and just so you know, it's not going to happen that way. All right, so when we come back, I'm going to get into this in the next study about now where God gives us information. So in other words, what is he sovereign to do? Okay. All right, excuse me. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome, and I'll see you in the next study.